Gather around, Skull brothers and sisters. This is Minnesota Sports Talk, presenting Under the Lights with your hosts, Justin and Dave, next in 3, 2, 1.
Good evening, Vikings fans, or as best as it can be after that demolition that we had to witness. This is Justin with Purple and Gold for Days Day with Minnesota Sports Talk. The name of the show is Under the Lights. We have a very special guest this evening, Ted Glover with Vikings Report with Drew and Ted. You've seen him for a long time. He was with Climb in the Pocket, Daily Norseman, and he is Vikings podcast royalty. Ted, how are you this evening?
Hi, thanks for having me. Who's the special guest?
I'm the peanut gallery.
Yeah,
all right. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely.
Pleasure to be here.
So the first question we always ask is, how'd you become a Vikings fan and how long has it been? That sort of thing.
I'm 55, so going on 48, 49, almost 50 years. I was born in Minnesota, grew up in Richfield, a suburb of Minneapolis. My dad was a Vikings fan. I watched I can remember watching Vikings games when I was a real little kid with him. So I grew up in it, been a fan my whole life.
So with that being said, I guess we'll just get the first question out of the way. Most people probably here, if you don't already subscribe to Vikings Report with Drew and Ted, you do a post-game show and then one show during the week that typically drops Thursdays, if I recall correctly. Is that right?
It's Fridays during the season. We have our studio show once a week, and then right after the game, most weeks we do a live post-game show called Vikings Report Rewind, and that's with, of course, my co-host from Vikings Report, Drew Bunning, and then our good buddy and the founder and lead blogger over at the Daily Norseman, still Christopher Gates.
There you go. So if you don't already subscribe, although if you're tuned in to Purple and Gold for Days or Minnesota Sports Talk, it'd be hard to believe that you don't already subscribe. But if you don't, please subscribe to Vikings Report with Drew and Ted. That being said, give us your unabashed and unfiltered take of this monstrosity that we had to witness here.
I mean, other than terrible, I don't know what you can say. It was just poorly coached, poorly prepared. Well, I mean, maybe they said they were well prepared, but poorly executed, unable to get any momentum going whatsoever. You know, on our post-game show yesterday, Drew and I were talking. It kind of felt like Super Bowl 11. You asked me if I remember any of the Super Bowls before we came on. And if you're old enough to remember Super Bowl 11, it really kind of had that vibe. You know, had that block punt early on.
Right.
Vikings couldn't convert. And at least they got a field goal out of it instead of a fumble on the goal line. But Packers immediately returned the kickoff for a touchdown. And it just, God, the route was on, man. I mean, it was just bad all the way around.
I kind of had a bad feeling after we didn't punch it in for the one because of the choice we made on the play call on the third down. Again, we pass on first down, take the ball out of Cousins' hands. Let's run it up the middle twice. But that second time we ran it, Schlottman left the game. We bring in a backup center who's never played center in an NFL football game before, if I'm not mistaken. And we run it right up his butt, you know, and we don't get anywhere with a guy on the other end, Kenny Clark, right? So I don't know if he specifically lined up on our center, but I just thought that was a poor choice of play calling at 1 yard line when you're playing with a backup center.
I agree. Yeah, it was, the Vikings have not been able to run, up the middle all year. I even when Bradbury was in, they still have had issues running between the center and guard all year. And now, not only do you, like you said, you have a backup, you've got the backup's back up in, and you still want to run.
And it seemed like we stayed doing that the whole game. I don't remember, like previous games, the biggest chunk yardage has been coming on the outside with Dalvin Cook, and it seems like the games that we haven't done well, we just haven't ran to the outside. We've run that pitch play 5 or 6 times during the year, and most of the times it works and it goes for 20, 30 yards. But we didn't seem to run the ball on the outside at all. And our leading rusher was Kirk Cousins. That can't happen going into the playoffs.
Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster.
It was bad.
I felt it right when the Packers returned the kickoff for a touchdown. I said to the people I was sitting with, the Vikings better score a touchdown here, or I'm not saying it's over, but it might be over because you had all kinds of momentum when you block a punt to the 1 yard line and you lost it by not punching into the end zone. And then you doubly lost it just giving up the ensuing touchdown. I said, you better seize this momentum back or it might just be Katie bar the door. And to say the least, it wasn't. Thought process on this. I still maintain that even though this defense is very, very mediocre at best, at times when they're getting turnovers, but bad at others, if you really break it down. Now, mind you, the Packers didn't try in the fourth quarter, but you gave up 13 offensive points in the first half. You gave up 2 touchdowns in the second half. If you gave me door number 1 is 27 points given up by the defense in Lambeau Field to Aaron Rodgers, or take your pick is to see if you can get better and worse, I'll take 27 points on the road. What did you think of the defensive performance on there from the standpoint of what's to be expected from them?
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, the first 2 touchdowns Green Bay had was the kickoff return and then the interception return. I mean, the defense played well. And by the fourth quarter, they got gassed and they started, giving up big plays, but they kept the Vikings the Vikings defense kept them in the game for the first quarter and a half. Even after those 2 return touchdowns, it was 14-3, and the offense just kept turning the ball over. They couldn't get anything going, and I have a hard time putting a lot of the blame for yesterday on the defense, other than the fact they got gashed in the running game. I mean, Aaron Jones, I think it only had 11 or 12 carries for 110 yards.
Yeah, he's the first 100-yard rusher of the season.
Yeah, I mean, the Vikings, look, the Vikings cannot run the ball and they cannot stop the run, and that is very concerning this late in the year for me. Those are the 2 biggest red flags as we head to Chicago and then the playoffs after that.
I think it was brought up that the like Spike Gate, like we have notes on the lockers apparently of saying recommendations that wear your 7 stud cleats or whatever, and we're seeing Justin Jefferson. We're seeing Justin Jefferson change his cleats in the first half on the sidelines. It's almost like, hey, we've been playing here before. This isn't our first rodeo in Green Bay. Our equipment manager's been here for years. We were seeing guys slipping and sliding, especially Justin Jefferson slipping and sliding. And it definitely, I thought, held him back in this game and made it easy for Jair Alexander to hold on to him. I mean, it just seems like when we said that we maybe weren't prepared, you brought that up at the beginning. Yeah, I feel that way. Like, hey, we need to make sure everybody's prepared, including the equipment. That's like, step 1. I felt like that. So do you feel like this is just hey, we'll not make this mistake again? Thank God we didn't do it in the playoffs. What are your thoughts on, being prepared, even simple things like that?
I'm glad you brought that cleat issue up because it's not an excuse as to why the Vikings lost. It's not.
Many reasons we lost.
From everything I read, the coaching staff and the training equipment staff said, hey, look, you need to wear, I think it was size 6 or maybe 8, whatever it was. You need to wear this type of cleat because of the field that we're anticipating on Sunday. And most of the team blew that off because they wanted to wear shoes that they were more comfortable with or whatever. Here's my thing. It's not the cleats. It's the fact that most of the team blew off the coaching staff and decided to do whatever they wanted. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Lambeau. I think it was in 2016 where the defensive backs just said, I don't care what Zimmer's going to call. We're going to do our own thing. Right. And they got completely blasted. It's a thing right now. It's like an exception, not the rule. But if you're Kevin O'Connell and you tell your guys, look, I think you should wear these, next time it doesn't say you don't need to say I think you should do this. It's we are going to do this to get everybody on the same page. That's an issue for me.
These games that we've came out flat, like Dallas, Eagles, all these, we could name plenty of games where we came out flat and had to come back to win, but this it feels like maybe it is a rookie head coach thing. I felt like we've had conservative play calling throughout the game, and then we finally go wide open in the fourth quarter. I just feel like this is another example. Hey, yes, he needs to say yes. We need to do this. We need this is he needs to put his foot down. He needs to set the ground rules. He lets them do all those fun things like wear chains coming home from the away games. But these are the simple things. These are this is the no-brainer stuff. This is the stuff you need to listen to me on. There's no clowning around. You don't need pretty-looking cleats that you had your dude design. Have them paint on the 7 cleats too. I don't care. You just need to wear the right cleats, not make them look pretty. Yeah, that's what I felt. I thought maybe that it was for aesthetic purposes rather than what you needed to do. But we beat a dead horse with that one. Now, tell me a little bit about you wrote for the Norseman.
The Daily Norseman.
Daily Norseman. How long did you do that?
God, like 10 years, I think. Yeah, Chris Gates let me hang around there for 10 years. Okay, and I started like the week. I think I did a couple like guest spots for him. I interviewed Paul Krause once when none of their guys could do it, and that kind of opened the door for me to be a writer for them. And I kind of came on officially like the week of the 2009 NFC Championship game.
Wow.
And I stayed through the 2020 draft, I think.
Yeah, I kind of felt like that was a good time for me to start a podcast, go 12-4 my first year, right? So that's pretty awesome timing. Now you mentioned you got to interview Paul Krause. We did too, which was awesome. And one of the things that we talked to him about was he has a record that, in my opinion, is like a Warren Spahn. It will never be broken. That a record 81 interceptions, I feel like will never be broken.
I agree. You look at the way the game has evolved to where it is now. The rules favor the offense. Defense. The defensive backs have a tough time defending without getting defensive holding or pass interference called on them. Back when Krause played, it was a different animal, man. You could pretty much maul a dude going down the field. And even though passing has evolved to where it's a passing first league, which is very uncharacteristic of the way the NFL was back in the 70s, the quarterbacks are a lot more accurate. I mean, back in Paul Krause's day, if a guy completed 55% of his passes, he was a good quarterback.
Or even through, guys are going to the Hall of Fame throwing more picks than they did touchdowns.
Yeah.
It's like crazy.
Yeah. So, I think getting an interception in the NFL is tough. I mean, Patrick Peterson has 3, I think, this year, and he's the team leader. I mean, guys used to get 7 and 8 regularly. I just to get 81 interceptions, you would have to get 10 interceptions a year plus a couple extra here and there for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
he had 12 as rookie.
Impossible.
He had 12 his rookie year and 10 in 1975, and that was 12 with the Redskins. But one of the things we brought up to him was a few years ago, NFL Films did a thing, top safeties, and they picked him as the second best safety. But when they did the NFL 100, they picked 6 safeties to be on the NFL 100 team. Paul Krause wasn't one of them, but he was on NFL Films as the second best safety. So it just doesn't make any sense, and honestly, he does not get enough attention for this. You go Google Paul Krause or you go YouTube and search for Paul Krause. There's 4 videos, and we're one of them. So it's just crazy that he doesn't get enough attention this day and age with a record that will never be broken.
I just think a lot of those guys from that era. I know Krause is in the Hall of Fame. But a lot of those guys from that Purple People Eaters era are overlooked because the Vikings lost 4 Super Bowls.
Correct.
If they win just one, or even 2, guys like I think you can make a case for Bobby Bryant going into the Hall of Fame. Jim Marshall would be in the Hall of Fame.
Definitely.
There's a couple other guys too that I can't think of off the top of my head, but yeah, I think those 4 Super Bowl losses are held against them more than just about any other team in that era.
No kidding. Hey, we're going to give some shouts to the people in the chat. Purple Pocket Podcast. That's Dave's Guy Rap. That's who he appears with on the Purple Code on Tuesdays, as well as his channel on Thursday. Blaze, thanks for joining us. Nick Howard in the house. Raymond in the house. Drew's also in the building. The McAndrews, thank you kindly for joining us. I love this guy. My worthless opinion. Yeah, that kind of really goes with that. Vikings Uncensored, thanks again.
Righto.
Hey, you know that guy, don't you? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Rhino's a good dude. Drew's a good dude, too.
G&G Sportscast, another one that Dave has his on his channel and appears on the Purple Code.
Dude, how many shows you got? Like half a dozen?
So on the Purple Code, I go Monday nights. Dave goes Tuesday nights with rap. There's a Wednesday night show, a Thursday night show. But, Dave and Rap also have their individuals that they came together before they joined Purple Code. So it's kind of a family affair where we always just, spread, love to each other and throw out each other's channels, that sort of thing.
You guys can't swing a dead cat without hitting one of your shows. That's awesome.
No, you cannot. Let's see. I got this one. Oh, hey, there you go, Dave. Rap with the $5 donation on Dave's channel there as well. JV, Just Vibes, thanks again for joining us. Vikings Uncensored, we got that. Worthless. William, thanks for joining us, man. We very much appreciate it. Well, I'm going to get back to your question after I get done with the shout-outs. I only got a couple more here. Dave, thanks again, as always, for joining us. We very much appreciate you. I think I've got them all here. But getting back to the equipment, I mean, we touched on it a little bit. How do you get an equipment of choice when coaches this? I mean, we touched on that earlier. I mean, shouldn't it just be the coach said, we're doing this versus what do you think you guys should do? I mean, you guys talked about it a little bit earlier, but that's what I wanted to throw back with. Shouldn't it just be this is what we're doing and I don't care?
I would think so. Apparently it wasn't, but yeah, I hope in the future that's what happens. Hopefully it's a lesson learned. You could go back to O'Connell being a first-year coach and all that stuff, but yeah, I think he should have just been more definitive in this is what we are going to wear on Sunday.
Vikings Uncensored, biggest gripe, KOC play calling, short yardage. I wholeheartedly agree. Listen, we like the fact that KOC has created a better working environment. I hate saying changing the culture, but let's just say better working environment. And there have been times where he's unlocked a version of Kirk Cousins that Dave and I sort of disagree with. He wants to say that that's always been there. I want to say, hey, maybe the talent's always been there, but there's just something different. We'll get back to that because there's no way we can do this show without talking about number 8. But having said that, the one thing I like aggressiveness, but I don't like going for 4th and 1 in your own territory, 2 drives in a row. Ted, what do you have to say about KOC?
Play to win. Go for it. I mean, look, at that point in the game, the Vikings needed a spark. They needed momentum. It didn't work out, but I appreciate the fact that Kevin O'Connell is an aggressive coach in that he plays to win the game. And I agree with Rhino. I don't like the short yardage play call. And Drew has complained about it on our show for most of the second half of the year. And he's got a point. The play calling is mystifying sometimes. It doesn't make sense. And neither of us can really understand why they can't do anything in the first half against the Colts, for example, and then can't do anything wrong in the second half. I mean, why can't they be more consistent? That would be my thing is the consistency of the offense. When they're on, man, it feels like they're unstoppable. But when they're off, it feels like, us 3 and 8 other guys could get them to go 3 and out. It's just frustrating.
It is the ultimate example of feast or famine. They look like usually the first drive or 2, they get a touchdown. And then they're asleep for a quarter and a half. And then they just absolutely dominate starting with, maybe 5 minutes left in the third quarter into the fourth. And that to me is when you have the defense that you have, that's going to get you some stops and it's going to get you some turnovers. You can't have a lull like that. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's play calling. I don't know if it's the halftime where they just get out of rhythm. I don't know if it's, the players themselves. I mean, it just drives, I'm with you. It drives us absolutely crazy that they could just look borderline 98 offense and then look borderline Christian Ponder led. Slight exaggeration, but you get my point.
It's not. It's really accurate analogies on both examples, I think.
I think it goes back to a little bit of what I said, like the Colts game. We started that second half 3 and out. It was run off the right guard, pass and we're a yard short of the first down punt. I mean, I just kind of feel like we get into that situation. Hey, let's get in shotgun and start throwing it around because we're down by 4 touchdowns, right? So that's the way I felt. And sometimes I don't think we do that, or we don't put in the whole thing in the beginning of the year. I heard them talk about putting their foot on the gas the entire game preseason. I don't think we've done that, where we get up like Chicago, we get up by 3 scores. There was some there's special teams issues that game. They come back. We have to win it in the fourth quarter again. But I just don't feel like, hey, we put our foot on the gas the whole game, and it's completely contradicts the way they were talking about in the preseason.
Yeah, I agree. I would argue they kind of had their foot on the gas. The very first game of the year against Green Bay, they didn't sustain all those drives. Yeah, and score on every possession, but they had 14, 7, 3 field goals. They had 5 scoring drives, 2 touchdowns, and the 3 field goals, and they held the ball. I mean, they moved the ball. They didn't really flounder. They were about as consistent as we've seen, and we haven't seen that. Well, I guess the Bills game they were fairly consistent as well. I think. Except
there was early on in the first half, or like that late in the first half, it was we went a little stale, but then we were able to come back with Dalvin Cook run.
Yeah. So no, the consistency is an issue, and it's something like and the thing, we also talked about this yesterday, and like at some point you think, well, once they get this figured out, they're going to unleash and they're going to be unstoppable and blah blah blah. Guys, we're like 16 games, 17 weeks into the season. This is who they are this year. It is. I mean, so how do you fix it? I don't know that you do fix it for the rest of this year. You just hope that they can figure it out enough to get over the hump in the playoffs.
I have seen different changes. Like there has been games where we couldn't run and then we started running the outside. It's like, well, let's go back to it. Or our screen game had been absolute crap most of the season. And then the game before it was awesome. And then where was it this last game? Yeah. I guess you do it against teams with better bigger pass rush. And we're going to go against the Giants who's blitzed a lot, so it was perfect, right? And that's how we won the game. We got within 61-yard field goal range. I know you compared it to the Minnesota Miracle back in the day with the U.S. Hockey beating the Russians, but it was things like that we did adapt, we did improve. Now some of the things that happen is our offensive line's pretty struggling a lot of the game, but seems to lock it down in the fourth quarter quite a bit. Now we're looking at a third string center that couldn't remember the snap count, it seemed. And we got Oli Udoh played right tackle, who I think did fairly well when he came in, because it was quote a significant injury to Brian O'Neill. Are we going to have to adjust the way we play with these backup linemen in there? And Bradbury's not playing in the Chicago game either, probably. Yeah. So we're down to 2 starters.
Yeah, I think they're definitely going to have to. I mean, you've got the entire from center right guard. Well, no, Ingram's okay, but I mean, you've got center and the right tackle.
I guess 3 starters. My bad.
Are done for the better part of the year, and outside of Christian Darrisaw, those have been the 2 best offensive linemen the Vikings have had. So yeah, it's going to be. The Vikings have had very fortunate luck in terms of injuries for the most part. This really couldn't come at the worst possible time. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, they're going to have to figure something out, but they're not going to postpone the games until until Bradbury and O'Neill can play. So Chris Reed better figure out a snap count, and they better sign somebody to back up Udoh. And I'll say Oli Udoh as a backup right tackle was a hell of a lot better than Oli Udoh as a starting guard.
Yes. Well, we do have the rookie that plays both tackle positions, so we do have Darian Lowe.
Yeah, you want to throw that dude in? I
don't. But you know what? Hey, he's been on the team.
maybe we can bring back the signed JC Treader rumors that everybody was.
There you go.
This summer.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
Well, I guess for me, what I would say is this: the defense is what it is. They were so bad last year that we were hoping to just get them between 16 and 20 because that would be such a massive improvement. Now, realistically, they're about the 24th best defense on a good day that has probably overachieved a little bit by getting all of the turnovers and being as clutch as they have been. But to me, you can't expect that that's going to be sustainable throughout the season. So what they're going to need to do, at least the way I see it, is they are going to need to get more production out of their offense, as unfair as that might be, because they are top 10 in pretty much all statistical categories, particularly scoring. Yeah, it's unfair to expect much more, but that's the only way you're going to win. You're going to have to score 35 points a game minimum in the playoffs, which, okay, that's somewhat unrealistic, but that's the only way you're going to win.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have to be complementary football, which the Vikings have not played very much this year. I mean, they haven't. The defense, I agreed. I agree with you. I thought the defense was going to be better simply for the fact it couldn't be much worse than last year, and it's about as bad as it was last year.
How much do you think it's the the scheme, or how much do you think it's hey, it's the first year in a new scheme? How much is it that the way Donatel teaches the scheme? What are your thoughts on the defense? Did we have the players, and it just wasn't? Just this soft coverage kind of like infested our defense to where we can't adjust on the fly and now all of a sudden be aggressive like we were a little more aggressive in that Giants game, right? So, right. Hey, where was it, this week with the Packers? It didn't matter because we gave up two defense and a special team score, had 3 picks, had a fumble. They scored 40 or 28 points off of. We missed 2 field goals. I mean, there's just so many things that went wrong. You can't really complain about the defense in this last game. But hey, the Giants that looked pretty good as far as causing a little mayhem in there. But what do you think? What is it about the defense? Is it something that we're gonna just have fix in the offseason, get a new defensive coordinator? What do you think?
I don't know about defensive coordinator. I think if you're gonna completely change schemes, you have to give it time.
Yeah.
And you have to let the coaching staff get players that are more adaptable to that scheme. I think you saw that with the drafting of a guy like Brian Asamoah and Caleb Evans this past draft. But go back and watch just some old highlights from just even 2 or 3 years ago. Eric Kendricks has lost a lot of speed. Harrison Smith has lost a couple steps. Those guys used to be about the 2 surest tacklers in the NFL. They are not anymore. And when you look at the cap hit that Kendricks has and Harrison Smith has coming next year, and there's a lot of guys that are going to be making a lot of money that are not going to come back because of that salary cap. And you can't look. I get why the Vikings kept some of these veterans with the new regime. You got to have experience. You got to have vets. But it's kind of becoming obvious to me that a guy like Eric Kendricks is not. He's kind of a north and south dude. Just go attack the gap and hit the runner, whatever. He was pretty good in coverage. Asking him to run side to side now when he's not that guy. 3 or 4 years ago, I think he'd have been a great fit in this scheme. He's not now. Jordan Hicks is not now. They're slow. They're slow to the perimeter. The Vikings linebackers cannot set the edge. And they're getting blasted up the middle because I don't think Drew said this more than once. The Vikings don't have a true nose tackle. If you're going to have a good 3-4, you have got to have like a Jerry Ball type big fat dude to take up 3 guys in the center of the line. And they don't have that. Tomlinson's good, but he's not a true nose tackle. Harrison Phillips isn't bad, but he's not a true nose tackle.
Eric Kendricks reminds me of like the last 2 years of Brian Urlacher, where he could still diagnose the plays, but he couldn't get there, and he'd be pointing, Lance, they're going that way, and say, here, you get out there, because he could still run. No, one of the things my compatriot on my Monday show and I both agreed with once they got rid of Mike Zimmer was no more sacred cows, okay? And the guys you're talking about are sacred cows. We all love Harrison Smith. We all love Dalvin Cook. We all love Adam Thielen as another example, and Eric Kendricks, as you said. But there's going to have to be some hard choices made. And as fans, you got to remember you're cheering for the team, not for the individual. I'm not saying I don't want Harrison Smith on this team, but not at that salary. I mean, Thielen's going to make almost $20 million against the cap next year, and that's just not going to work.
Yeah, one of the reasons I really wanted a new GM last year, along with a new head coach, is because Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah is not as emotionally tied to these guys as Rick Spielman was. And look, at the end, Zimmer was just pounding the table. I firmly believe this with every fiber of my being that Zimmer and Spielman would go round and round on these contracts. And Zimmer was like, I want my guys, damn it, because if I have my guys, they know my scheme and will be good and blah, 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 blah. So Spielman kept signing them. I mean, you got Smith, you got Kendricks. They re-signed Barr, for God's sakes.
That was the one.
Kyle Rudolph, who like was slow even coming out of the draft, but he's like so slow he's moving backwards by his last year in Minnesota. I mean, he tried to keep the band together for as long as you can. And look, if you don't win the Super Bowl, you're going to be in cap hell, and that's where the Vikings are finding themselves now. So Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah is going to have to make a lot of tough decisions, and a lot of longtime fan favorites are going to be gone next year because they just have to be. If you're going to if this was the competitive part of the rebuild this year, next year is going to be more rebuild while trying to remain competitive.
One of the things you brought up here is you mentioned some names here, which Harrison Smith. Well, hey, look at what we got coming up. I'm playing well. Josh Metellus and Lewis Cine, unfortunately, had that season-ending injury. So we got some guys that could replace a Harrison Smith. And you mentioned Kendricks. Well, you mentioned Asamoah, which was, I thought a great draft pick because he's a East and West guy, like you're hoping, can cover a lot of ground. And, was a sure tackler in college, and hopefully he can stay that way in the pros. And then we talked about, you mentioned our former tight end, but now we got TJ Hawkinson, who is still a young guy. And so it's like, hey, we do got a window. We still have these guys that can come up, supplement with the draft and bring in some free agents possibly where, hey, we may be even better because we may be younger. And, a Harrison Smith and a Kendricks might be moving on.
Yeah, that's possible. But they've got to get younger, especially on defense, because you watch that defense this year, and I know a couple guys have been saying it's Donatel. It's partly Donatel's fault. I agree, but I would argue one of the reasons he plays so much soft cover 2, cover 4 shell, whatever it is he wants to call it, whatever it is you want to call it, is because he knows he doesn't have the horses that can get home consistently. And if he goes to a pure bump and run man, those guys are going to get blasted. I just think it's his philosophy is this year, like, try and minimize the damage as much as we can. And then once we get more scheme friendly guys, we may be able to be more aggressive. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I think his defense also revolves around getting to the quarterback, which hasn't been a big thing, at least the second half of the season. It seems like we've struggled getting there. And you mentioned having a nose tackle that could actually just get in the backfield, like can shove that center into the quarterback. You know what I'm saying? That we haven't had that. And, we got guys, maybe a Daniil Hunter that's playing out of position a little bit, but doing the best he can. At his position and actually showing some flashes at that spot. But when we have I see either Daniil Hunter or Zadarius Smith lined up on St. Brown in the Lions game, I'm like, what the hell? How is that happening? Or we had 10 guys on the field this last game. Like, there's a little bit going on here. What's going on?
That's just ridiculous too. Hey, we got 10 guys on this play. We got 12 guys on another play. That's okay, right? It averages out to be 11.
Well, I mean, Rodgers been famous for doing that, trying to catch 12 guys on the field. And I thought that crap was done when they make sure everybody could substitute before they snap the ball. And of course that didn't happen with us. And you mentioned in your show that, Green Bay is always going to get a little bit of favoritism when stuff like that happens. And it kind of showed it. It kind of showed when they're setting the ball for Rodgers so he can quick snap it and get us with 12 guys on the field.
Well, I mean, for everybody griping about Ed Donatel not being creative, the 10-man defense was very innovative. It didn't work. It was very innovative. It was. And the only
reason that I got the first down is because Kendricks fell down because he slipped on the freaking turf. Yeah. What spikes you have in Kendricks? But hey,
Well,
I do have a question. Switching a little bit to offense, we talked about some really nice young players, Evans and Asamoah. People have been dogging on this last draft because of the injuries, like Lewis Cine and Anderby Jr., but we got a starting right guard out of it. Asamoah is playing a lot better. Jalen Naylor has 5 catches for 5 first downs and in a 47-yard touchdown this last game. I was pretty high on him, 6th-round pick. Kind of reminds me of Diggs when not as a talent, but as the fact that he was hurt all his college career and fell to the 5th round. And hey, Naylor was hurt all his college career, broke his hand his senior year. He was on the 1,000-yard season. Showed a lot of talent. You watched the Big Ten, Michigan State. He's making one-handed grabs. He's wide open. He's fast. He's making people miss, breaking long passes. I seen him do fade in the back of the end zone. A lot of talent there. He has a 30-inch, 8-inch vert. His name is Speedy because he was a track star, state champion. This guy gets on the field and has got 5 catches, and he's averaging 24 yards a catch. So what do you think about Naylor's future? Because we've been saying that we don't have a true number 2 right now. Hey, he might be on the team.
Naylor, I don't even know her, but sorry.
Waiting for that. I just served that up like a softball.
Dumb it, dope. Sorry. No, I would take the look. It was great, 47-yard touchdown. He caught a great pass by Kirk. Naylor ran a great route. I get it. That one throw and catch does not mean he's a wide receiver 2 guy.
Right.
Justin Jefferson's clearly wide receiver number 1, probably the best in the league. They do need receiving help. I don't know that Naylor is ready to take that step yet. Look, if he is, that's great. I'm kind of looking at
he's
him.
A rookie. I'm not talking about this year.
Yeah, like down the road. I like next year, maybe the year after. I don't know. He's got the potential. I think he's still a fairly raw route runner and NFL player. I mean, I'm still not sold on him, but I like the potential that's there, if that makes sense.
Well, I like the next catch he got was he was bracketed. He double moved him and got another 20 some yards on that play, and then another first down on an out route where he's wide ass open. I mean, he's doing something good. And he's been our gunner on, special teams. I'm probably higher on Naylor than probably like the whole world, but I liked him coming out of the draft. I did a video on it. I was pretty excited about it. I called him the best value that we had in the draft because he got him in the 6th round. I thought if it was a different receiver draft and he was healthy his entire senior season, he would have went a lot higher. But I just feel like, hey, we kept him for a reason and let a lot of vets go, or previous Vikings go, and we kept him on this team the entire season. So we must be seeing something in him, and it looks like he's jumped Rager, and now he's our number 4. So he's moving up the chart. We gave plays to Rager. Now those plays may be going, or Rager. Now they may be going to a Naylor coming forward. We'll get to see because it took 3 years for Thielen to get a start, and that took Diggs to go down so he could get a start. But in year 2, he was showing some flashes. So hey, I don't want to wait 3 years on a Thielen. We had Thielen the whole time. We could have been using him.
Yeah, no, I get it. And you want to throw him in as wide receiver 4? I'm cool with it. And for what it's worth, Drew was really high on him coming out of the draft.
Oh, really?
When the Vikes got him, yeah, he was a guy that he was pretty pumped up about for a lot of the same reasons. He's a big play guy. I just worry that, I think the Packers were pretty much resting their starters by that time.
Yeah,
too.
It was garbage time. Let's not do too much.
The safety that missed the tackle has 3 picks on the year and started like 12 of the 16 games. So the safety that missed him, he was a starter. The corner, however, was not. He was playing trail on that play. But yeah, the safety that missed him has 3 picks on the year. So
I mean, and Jalen Rager was directly responsible for 2 of Kirk's picks, I think, in the Indianapolis game.
That's why he's probably not getting on the field right now. Yeah, he's not getting on the field these last 2 games, and that's probably why.
So if they think they can use him, then by all means do it.
Vikings Jerome, thanks for joining us. I haven't mentioned you here yet. Next year's draft, don't trade out. What are your thoughts on Kwesi and all of his razzle dazzle by the amount of trades he's made thus far?
Liked it. I've liked him. The only trade I didn't like was the Detroit trade in the draft. But when you add it all together, the trade with Detroit, the trade with Green Bay, and then the trade with Indianapolis that allowed him to move up and get Evans, you take everything in total. I liked what he did. I love the Hockenson trade. I thought it was a great trade. Vikings really needed another guy when it became apparent that Osborne and Thielen aren't it anymore. They just aren't. Mm-hmm. You need another guy that can get separation and get open, and Hockenson's been that guy. I could have swore I saw a comment, don't trade in this upcoming draft. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, I think, is going to trade more in this next draft. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yep,
that's what a blowout loss does, you know.
Well, I think he's going to have to, because right now the Vikings only have, I think, 4 picks. They got a first rounder, a third rounder, a fifth, and a sixth. I mean, the second round.
We might have 5. I can't remember. I think we maybe gained 1 back, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So they don't have a full complement of picks. So I don't.
Yeah, he's trading down. He's going to accumulate some picks, I think.
I because the Vikings, look, they have a lot. They have a lot of needs they need to address. And if they're going to have to make some tough decisions with the salary cap and contracts, which is probably going to add some dead money to the back end of their cap. So he's going to have to replenish that as the roster gaps with as much draft capital as he can get. So I think he's going to be wheeling and dealing on draft weekend.
And honestly, he's hit some late players. I feel I'm a big Ty Chandler fan too. I think he was in a running back by committee at Tennessee, but when he went to Carolina, I saw vision. He runs a 4.3 something. I see, and he was known to be a receiving running back. I think he's going to be perfect. I said he's going to be our starter in 2024. I think we're going to try to work something out with Dalvin this offseason. But he's another big cap hit. But I think those 2 guys, Naylor and Ty Chandler, waiting in the wings. But immediately we got our, Ingram, we got Asamoah, Evans. Hopefully, Scene makes a full recovery. And honestly, I'm not giving up on Andrew Booth Jr. I think some people are.
Yeah.
It's because he's been injury prone like crazy. But talk to me after next year, okay, about busts. I'm gonna these rookies all got hurt early in practice in preseason, and now we're starting to finally get to see him on the field. And Asamoah is going to be a starter on our team for a long time, I feel. And Evans, he may not start, he may not, but I feel good about having Evans as on the depth chart of our cornerbacks.
No, I agree. Julian, thanks for joining us. Got to get some shout outs here real quick. Vikings Jerome, I appreciate you. Here's the deal. Are Hawkinson's drops starting to be concerned? My worthless opinion has a good point. Is it just, what do you think, Ted?
A little bit. But that was, Hockenson, I don't know that he had this many drops in Detroit, but in Iowa, he dropped an occasional football or 2. It wasn't like a complete. This isn't completely out of the blue for him. The amount of drops he had yesterday was kind of concerning. But for every drop he has, he makes 4 or 5 great catches. So I think it balances out, and it's pretty cool for me as a Vikings fan to see a tight end that can get some yards after a catch. Look,
right.
Rudy. Look, I loved Rudy. Terrible movie, but I love the tight end. But he was like great at catching the ball, but not doing anything with it afterwards. Right. Hockenson, he'll have an occasional drop, but then he'll turn upfield and get an extra 10, 15, 20 yards. So I'm here for that.
Yeah, a couple of those, I guess, could be considered drops. There was one off the fingertips early in the game. Kirk Cousins could have let some more air under. It just wasn't a perfect connection. I could forgive him on that one. And then the tip pick 6, he was getting hit at the same time the ball was coming in. I don't know. But yeah, there's been other like that. What was it? Was it the Cowboys game that he missed that touchdown early in the game? They were going to kill us anyways.
Right,
we weren't up for that game. But yeah, and I talked to Micro Mike, who's over at Chat Sports, and he brought up Hockenson about it was time for him to go. And yeah, I saw one of his videos on Hawkinson and saying, yeah, he's been a guy that would drop some balls here and there, like you said. So a Lions fan kind of backs up what you said you saw in Iowa and what we're kind of seeing now. But hey, he had 15 yards of catch for Detroit this year. He had a 200-yard game. He's had a 2-touchdown game with us. He's had a 100-yard game with us. I like it. Give me some more TJ Hawkinson.
And look, and with Irv Smith coming back too, a lot of that was kind of overlooked a couple weeks ago or last week, I think it was. Irv's in this 21-day window to be activated or shut him down for the year. I think they're going to activate him. I think he's going to be activated for the playoffs. And Irv's TJ Hawkinson is what we kind of hoped Irv Smith would become.
Correct.
Irv Smith, if he could get healthy and get in the playoffs, I think Hawkinson and Irv Smith with a guy like Justin Jefferson is going to open up the field more for KJ Osborne and Adam Thielen, which sounds weird that you have tight ends getting the field opened up for wide receivers. But I really think that we've seen Thielen and Osborne all year. I don't know what the deal is with KJ, but he's not getting separation. Yeah, I talked about watching Kendricks from 2 or 3 years ago. Go watch the highlights from Adam Thielen about 2 or 3 years ago. Right. That dude has lost a lot of speed. So if they can get Irv Smith healthy, I think they may have something.
I'll say this about KJ Osborne, to your point. He just kind of gets what he gets. If Kirk puts a perfect ball on him outside of the game winner against Detroit, when Detroit was focusing on Thielen and Jefferson.
He triple team Jefferson on that.
Exactly. KJ doesn't get a whole lot of separation. And what's interesting about it is TJ Hawkinson at 503 yards is only 30 yards behind KJ Osborne, and that 503 is only the 503 that he's had with the Vikings. So absolutely that TJ is definitely the number 2 receiver at this point from a catch.
Hey, in Kansas City for years, their number 1 or 2 was a tight end. So, I mean, hey, I'm not saying that TJ Hawkinson's at that level, but hey, he's definitely a tight end 1 that we haven't had that could do it all. I mean, we didn't have a speed tight end with lately, and then Irv Smith Jr. was not, he's not a blocker, and he's a smaller tight end. He's only 6 foot tall. So we got a guy that has it all. And it kind of reminds me of the situation back in Canada, and not that they were at this level, but Hernandez and Gronk, I think, played at the same time, if I'm not mistaken. Right. And we got a big TJ Hawkinson, and we got a Irv Smith Jr. as a, as that smaller, speedy tight end. So I feel like, hey, that's a wrinkle we can bring into the playoffs that we haven't been doing all season. So we could change things up. We can add some wrinkles to the offense. Who knows what we could do? I think that we have endless possibilities if all these guys are healthy going into the playoffs. Offensively,
I think
defensively, it's a coin toss. I don't know what's going to happen. If we have turnovers, then we'll do okay.
I saw my buddy Drew commented for the playoffs earlier. The Vikings are either going to win the Super Bowl or they're going to lose by 35. And he's absolutely right. That's exactly what's going to happen.
That was a meme I saw today. I shared it. I was like, hey, we're going to either win the Super Bowl or lose by 40.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens.
Well, that would be fitting for this Vikings. They are feast or famine, offensively and defensively. Circling back to the Detroit Lions trade from Kwesi, and that's during the draft. The only thing I didn't like about it, when they traded that far back, that they either A, didn't keep their second-round pick or get Detroit's first-round pick next year. Yes, granted, the rest of the moves that he made were very, very good, and you did take 1 draft pick and turn them into 4 players that you are hoping are going to be stalwarts for this team. Am I being too hard on him for saying, hey, you either had to keep your second or get Detroit's first next year? Is that too much?
No, I agree, too. I mean, we said that at the time as well on our show. The Vikings did not get enough in return on that trade. But, I mean, if on the flip side, though, if you were intent on making that trade and that was the best offer you could get and you still plan to make other deals later, okay. But, no, I'm never going to be okay with that Detroit trade because, yes, the Vikings should have gotten 1 more pick back, whether it was a pick next year or whatever. I agree. They should have gotten something else. They should have gotten more compensation in return from dropping down that far.
I think 99% of everybody probably thought that too. I do kind of look into it though. Did we have enough goodwill with making that first trade that they were willing to trade TJ Hawkinson midseason with us? Does that trade happen if we don't make that trade with them? Like, it feels like they paid us back a little bit. You know what I'm saying? There's, who knows what could happen, but at the time I felt the same way, man. I was like, why'd we give up this much? And I felt good the fact that we did get Andrew Booth Jr., who I had as a first rounder. I felt like he was the third best cornerback, arguably at least top 5 for sure. That I thought, hey, if we drop down in the 20th, I was looking to get him there. Hey, you're picking 32. Oh, let's get him there. Oh, we didn't draft him. Oh, we traded down. Now we're never going to get him. We trade back up. We get him. I was really high on Andrew Booth Jr., so I felt really good that we got a starting right guard and Andrew Booth Jr. out of that deal after all the trades were done. So I think Kwesi kind of maximizes picks, but I'm with you. I'm kind of excited to see what Kwesi will do this offseason because we are missing some picks, and he's going to accumulate some. And I feel good about him. I'm not as down on his draft class as a lot of people are. I'm tossing it up to injury, but I'm looking forward to what Kwesi does next year with this.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't think there's a help a buddy out mentality
especially in the division.
Yeah, especially within the division.
Something happened.
Look,
happened.
Yeah, Detroit sucked at the time, and they kind of looked to be in fire sale mode. I mean, until they went on that late season winning streak, and they were just kind of looking towards next year. I mean, at the time, I think Detroit only had one win. They were like 1-5 or 1-6. It didn't look like they were gonna rebound like they have. So from Detroit's perspective, like, look, Hawkinson, he's only got 1 year of his rookie contract, of his rookie deal left. So they were going to have to make a decision on his 5th-year deal or his 5th-year option. They were like 1-5 or 1-6. Dan Campbell was probably thinking, I might get fired. I don't know.
I think next year is his 5th year, isn't it?
Yes, correct.
He's got one. They have 1 more year of him under his rookie deal. Next year will be his 4th year, and then he should have. I thought so.
I think you might be right. Yeah.
And so I think it was more along those lines. Look, we got to dump this contract because we're probably not going to re-sign him. Because we're probably going to there's probably going to be a new GM and head coach here in a couple of years. That's kind of, that script is now flipped, but I think that is where Detroit was at the time, which made sense for making that deal.
He's in year 4 next year.
Yeah,
is his 5th year.
He's 2000.
Because he's getting $9 million next year. I thought that had to be his 5th year. So he's
exactly.
5th year next year.
Either way, circling back to a couple of thought processes here with this year's team. This offensive line was bad last year, and through the first half to 2/3 of this season was serviceable. I'm not going to say that they were the Dallas Cowboys in 1995. But one thing that, outside of the luck of the interceptions and clutch plays from Kirk Cousins and the defense, was the Vikings really avoiding the injury bug. Right now, this offensive line is a walking mash unit. Did you ever think you'd be clamoring and hoping that we need to get Garrett Bradbury back? Otherwise, we're totally screwed. Honestly, we all wanted to run the guy out of town, but
that was not the narrative in preseason.
Well, it wasn't the narrative from Kevin O'Connell, but what else is he going to say? That being said,
I'm just saying we didn't want, us as fans and podcasters were probably wanting, JC Treader, come on, let's get him. Yeah.
Exactly. What can they do? Or is this just is what it is? Because we all know that Kirk Cousins has his strengths and weaknesses, and if he's behind a decent offensive line, he can be a top 5 quarterback, but if he's behind a mediocre to bad line, he's not.
You could say that about any quarterback, though.
True,
any quarterback behind a bad offensive line is going to struggle.
Right.
He's 5th in yards and 4th in touchdowns, and he's doing it behind this offensive line. So I don't know where you're going with that one, but
where I'm going,
he was the Pro Bowl last year under this offensive line. So I feel like, hey, he can do it, and he has done it with this. Most hits in the year, 4th in sacks against. He's been doing it with this offensive line. Do you think he can continue to save this offensive line? Or what's your feelings behind it?
Can Kirk continue to save this offensive line?
By getting, or one of our guys says, "Hey, we should be doing 3-step drops, get the ball out early, things like that."
They need to recognize what the limitations of this new offensive line is and try and play to those strengths. If it's 3-step drops, if it's quarterback rollouts or waggles, whatever. Again, we hit this yesterday. Why aren't the Vikings doing any rollouts? It used to kind of be the staple of their offense, and they really have gotten away from that. And I think they're going to have to move the pocket a little for Kirk in these next couple weeks and into the playoffs. Simply for the fact you got Chris Reed and Oli Udoh, and they're not, they're backup guys. I mean, they are what you'd expect backup guys to be. They're serviceable, but they're not great. So they're going to have to do something to limit those weaknesses to the best of the offense's ability.
Looking at how the playoff structure currently is and looking forward to what it could be, my assertion at this point is that you treat next week as your pseudo preseason game. You do not have
preparation.
You don't have a single player of significance play on that field in Chicago next weekend. And for two reasons. One, you don't want to risk injury when the simple fact of the matter is you're not getting the 2 seed. San Francisco, if they need to play their players, is not going to lose to Arizona. So, yes, if you played and you won that game, you would force San Francisco to play it out. It's not worth the injury possibilities in Chicago to me. And frankly, if you got that 2 seed, you're going to be facing the winner of the Green Bay Detroit game, who's both teams have beaten you. And if you don't and get the 3 seed, you got the New York Giants. So am I crazy? Or what would you do if you're the head coach, Kevin O'Connell, Ted?
I'd rest my starters. I'd rest as many of them that was practical. I think I'd start Nick Mullins for sure. I'd probably start Alexander Madison. I'd probably keep Jefferson and Thielen out for a while. I'd definitely play Reed. I'd definitely play Udoh. I'd play the rest of the offensive line probably for the first half, and then just kind of on defense, I'd probably rest Hunter and Smith. I just think I'd rest Kendricks and start Asamoah and just to get him some playing time, and just go. And I might do that anyways, and just kind of play this as a glorified exhibition game.
I personally think it's the prudent thing to do too. I think there's value in the idea of, hey, let's get it right, come out there in like a preseason game where you do play your starters to get that rhythm back. But yeah, it's just because of how this last game went, honestly, is the only reason I would say that. But I don't see the Cardinals beating San Francisco on the road. If that's I think it's a home game for San Francisco. But I honestly I think KOC is going to go for the win. I don't know. I just feel like that's what's going to happen. Not that I want that to happen, but I think and Justin, you saw my videos before, is that I wanted this Packer game and this. I didn't think San Francisco was going to continue to win with Brock Purdy, but hey, he's showing up, man. That we would be able to coast these last 2 games, play a half game of the Packers, sit all the starters on the Bears, and that just did not work. And now we're here at the 3 seed because other teams kept winning, and we drop a couple games.
We gotta address this, Drew. That's hilarious. Yes, they did pert near, but rest their starters. Vikings uncensored. No, they just didn't show up. I don't know, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Worthless says, yeah, let's rest him here. Here's the thing. Let's get this one. Vikings Uncensored says, I feel better about Nick Collins beating Chicago than I did in the past about Mannion beating anyone.
He's not wrong.
Very true. He's not wrong.
No. Oh, yeah. Jesus. I would rather have Mullins. I would rather have half of Mullins. I would rather have Mullins on one leg. The game that I went to, I decided to go to a game. Okay, it's gonna be Christmas. Where we play our backup. He's terrible. He hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in his entire career up until last year. And he did it against Chicago, which is crazy. Or did he do it who did he throw his first touchdown pass to?
I thought it was the Green Bay game where Cousins had the vid. I could be wrong.
Okay, yeah, that was the game. He threw it late in the game. It was against Green Bay when Kirk Cousins has COVID. I mean, anybody could tell that this guy should not be playing the NFL. Mullins is one of those guys that you roll the dice. He's got 2 blowout victories under his belt in this league. So yeah, I was pretty happy about having Mullins in, and I would like to see what he can do. Give him some of that, give him some of that game time because he'll be our backup next year. And God knows we've been rolling the dice with Kirk Cousins every game, and he's not gotten hurt in his entire career. And who knows what could possibly happen where we need a 3-game stretch with some Nick Mullins.
Well, we're going to be respectful.
Knocking on wood.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to be respectful of Ted's time. We just hit about an hour here. So a couple of quick questions at the end about what you would consider success. Going into the season, I would have said if the Vikings had blown it up, then like any other head coach, you get 2 or 3 years of a honeymoon period with 0 expectations. When they decided not to blow it up, I said, fine. My expectations is that you get to the divisional round of the playoffs. Being the 7th seed that gets slaughtered in the first round is not enough for me. My expectations got raised to say, hey, with where this team had started and being the 2 seed, my expectations for a successful season was NFC Championship game. Now, I've since lowered them back to divisional round of the playoffs here, but where would you say your line of demarcation is where the season goes from an abject failure to meets expectations to exceeds expectations, Ted?
If you would have asked any Minnesota Vikings fan at this time last year, or if you would have told them at this time last year, hey, 1 year from today, the Minnesota Vikings are going to be division champs, 12-4 with 1 game to play, and they're the 3 seed in the NFC. You would have been ecstatic.
Where do I sign?
With that.
Right.
Where do I sign?
You would have been ecstatic with that. So I'm already considering this season a success. And like for me, everybody says, well, oh God, you're not demanding enough, and the goal should be the Super Bowl every year. Shut up. Just shut up. Yes, you're right, but shut up. Because the last 2 or 3 years of Mike Zimmer were the Minnesota Vikings getting closer or farther away from the Super Bowl. They were getting so far away, like they were going so far south, they were starting to turn north again and then go south again. That's how far away from the Super Bowl they were getting. They are, under Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings are now getting better. They are getting closer to the Super Bowl. They have a ways to go. I don't think they're going to get there this year. I think they will win their wild card round. The divisional round is going to be tough no matter who they play. I'm not optimistic because Philadelphia they've lost to. They got their brakes beat off by Dallas. San Francisco looks damn near unstoppable now that they got Christian McCaffrey. And look, the Giants game is going to be a tough game. They barely beat the Giants. It was a 61-yard field goal. They beat them last time. So, but I still think this season is a success. Like when I was kind of rolled my eyes when I heard competitive rebuild, but it worked. I mean, it worked. You can nag and you bitch and complain all you want about, well, the Vikings look crappy in 4 games. Okay, they won 12. I mean, I thought going into this season, if they won 9 games and snuck in, and they're trying to do what Green Bay's doing right now. If they did what Green Bay was trying to do right now, win and in on the final weekend to get the 7th seed, to travel to the number 2 seed, and probably get their ass kicked, I would have thought that was a successful season. They're getting a home playoff game and they're division champs. I love it.
I think we were pretty happy when Zimmer went, at 7-9 his first year when he lost Adrian Peterson for the first, for 15 games.
Right.
I'm like, we were probably pretty happy about 7-9 and that defense turning around. And then the next year it got better and better. But yeah, I mean, 12-4 right now. I honestly, because of the strength of schedule, I predicted 12-5. And it's about to happen probably if we don't beat the Bears. And I'm ecstatic that we did this year. Do I think we're going to win the Super Bowl? No, but do we have a chance? Sure. Everybody's got a chance once you make the playoffs. And we've proven that. I mean, 87, we came to the NFC title game with, beating a 12-win team and then the crushed San Francisco 49ers. Things like that. We have a puncher's chance just as good as anybody getting this league. We can put it together, but we're gonna have to change things going in the playoffs. We got to put some wrinkles in. We got to like we said, get rid of the ball quick or where the rollouts are. You know, I think Kirk Cousins' superhuman ability is to roll out to the left. Who rolls out to his left and throws with accuracy better than Kirk Cousins? That's right-handed. It's, you know, things like that. And, you know, he showed it the other day with KJ Osborne in the, you know, the end zone against the Giants. But yeah, there's a lot of things that we could do, you know, in the playoffs with this team, even with, you know, bad timing with the injuries. But yeah, if we go in the end of the season 12-5 and play really tough in the playoffs, I'm not gonna dismantle the team. No, I'm like, hey, we got a good team. Look what we did. We won 12 games. We can do it again. We have 12 of our games next year have teams that have 500 or worse records right now. You know, 12 of our games next year, 12 of them have 500 or worse records. So hey, we got a shot next year too. Not giving up this year, though.
No, not at all. All right, Ted. Here's a scenario for you. The Packers win, get the 7th seed. They go to San Francisco. San Francisco, a team that has had Green Bay's number in the playoffs, went into Lambeau Field last year. Vikings host New York, and Tampa Bay hosts Dallas. Would you cheer for Green Bay to beat San Francisco so that you would have the winner of Dallas and Tampa Bay? Or would you say, no, I would rather take my chances in San Francisco?
I don't care what other teams do. I mean, I'd like the Vikings to have home games as much as possible in the playoffs. I think playing at home is important. So whatever gets the Vikings a second home game or even a third home game, if it gets to that point, I'm for. I don't care if San Francisco beats the hell out of Green Bay or vice versa. I don't care. I want the Vikings to be playing their best football and everybody to be scared of the Minnesota Vikings when they play them. That's what I want.
Micah Patriot, Mike Castellino asked me, would you rather the Vikings lose to the Giants in the wild card round or lose to the Packers in the NFC Championship game? And I said, well, no, neither. But that would be very Vikings-like to have this kind of season.
Sophie had better choices than that. My God, man.
Yeah, I'm just like, seriously? But it would be Vikings to get to the NFC Championship game with this much unexpected success, winning the division, having the Packers one more loss from being dead and buried and Jordan Love playing, and then lose them in the NFC Championship. I don't know which one would make me throw up worse, Ted.
I think Detroit's beating Green Bay anyway, so
I would love it.
I can root for Detroit against Green Bay. I can do that.
Want to thank everybody again who's gotten in here. I haven't got some names out here. I'm going to say this, Anthony. Yeah, the team from Wisconsin got away with some stuff. The refs had zero to do. We got dominated in both of the trenches.
All aspects of the game.
All three phases. Yes, I know. Body slam. Okay, yeah, sure. But they threw a flag on that play. Yeah, the Vikings need to hire 49er staffers for defensive coordinator. I will say this. Part of the reason San Francisco is as successful as they have been is that they have so many great players on both the offense and defensive lines that, yeah, a lot of coaches can be successful with that because that's where their team starts. And that's why, Mr. Irrelevant is able to be as successful or competent as he can. He's behind one of the greatest offensive lines. What say you, Ted?
Yeah. I mean, look, I know Philly's the number one seed. I think San Francisco's the team to beat in the NFC, though.
I agree.
They're good. They're good.
Scary.
Yeah, okay. I don't know where he's going with that, so I'll just leave that one out here. Well, if you have not already subscribed to the Vikings Report with Drew and Ted, it has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for your time here today, Ted. We try to keep this within an hour, and we're already at an hour and 10 minutes here. So we'll just let you have the floor to say, hey, final thoughts on here. But if you don't already subscribe to Vikings Report with Drew and Ted, please do so. Obligatory shameless plugs. Purple and Gold for Days is me. Minnesota Sports Talk with Dave. Hit up all the channels, hit the like buttons, and let people see what we got going on here tonight. Anthony says this: Detroit is good enough to beat that. Yes, if it was in Detroit, I would like Detroit's chances. I don't like Detroit's chances on the road in January. But Ted, take us out here. Final thoughts. Empty the notebook. What say you?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, guys. Really
Absolutely.
Enjoyed it. Yeah, the Vikes. I like the season the Vikes have had. It's been one of the funner seasons in recent memory. Hope it continues and goes all the way to Glendale or wherever it is they're having the Super Bowl.
Yes,
this year.
Glendale.
We'll see what happens. I mean, let's just figure out. Let's just get past Chicago and then try and get as healthy as possible for the playoff game, the home playoff game, which really nobody saw coming at the beginning of the year. Say what you want, but nobody did. You really didn't. If you did, you're lying.
Right.
Or
you're Paul Allen.
Or you're Paul Allen. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm having fun watching this team finally. It was like watching this team was like chewing glass for last 3 or 4 years of the Zimmer regime, and this is a lot of fun. So I'm having a good time.
This is exciting.
Yeah.
I'm happy. I'm happy this year ended the way way it went, man. There's a lot of exciting things. A lot of good things happen this year.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we all are of the mindset that we just want to see the Vikings win one Super Bowl before we die. Just one, you know, and everything after that is gravy. But don't be – and what's that phrase that you guys have, that people who are just never happy
the ESAT, everything sucks all the time crowd?
Yes, ESAT. Don't be an ESAT where everything sucks. The Vikings could be 16-0 and rest their starters and get one loss, and the ESAT people, everything sucks all the time, would be complaining about that. Well, Dave, anything else before we wrap this up here?
No, man. Ted, thank you for having. Thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it. Hopefully we can bring you on again either off season or next year or whenever. Thank you for giving us your time, man. I appreciate it.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, have a great rest of your day, Vikings fans, and hopefully, we can get the bad taste of that Packers loss with a victory in 2 weeks, most likely against the Giants. Again, the scenarios still exist out there, but I think we can be realistic and say that the Vikings are going to be locked into the 3 and the Giants already locked into the 6. We're going to have a rematch from just a couple of weeks ago. Thank you kindly for joining Under the Lights. Please like, comment, and subscribe to all of the channels we got here. We're going to head out for now. Thanks again. Skol Vikes. Let's win this game.